A month before the apocalypse, a man received a phone call. After hearing just the first sentence, he sat up in terror. His cousin, who worked at the National Climate Monitoring Center, said that Earth was about to experience an unprecedented climate anomaly. Global temperatures would first rise by 10 degrees, then plummet by 200 degrees. In short, a glacial apocalypse was coming. The boy asked in surprise if it would be like in the movies. His cousin didn't answer. She said she had already found shelter and stocked up on supplies, and told him to get ready immediately. Suddenly, the call dropped. It didn't sound like she had hung up on purpose. He dismissed it as a boring joke and went back to sleep. The next day, when he went downstairs to pick up his takeout, he noticed that even though it was winter, he felt so hot he wanted to wear short sleeves. It was really strange. A week passed, and the temperature kept rising. This was the weirdest winter he had ever experienced. Then he thought about what his cousin had said. She had never been the type to joke around. He started to get scared. He tried to call her again to confirm if the information was real, but her number was disconnected. His gut told him this was no joke. He really needed to prepare for the apocalypse. He rushed to the mall and began shopping like crazy. First, he bought blankets and down jackets. He had watched a lot of apocalyptic movies, but now that the end was really coming, as someone about to live through it, his heart was filled with anxiety and fear. He had already wasted one of the 4 weeks he had. Now there were less than 3 weeks left. He couldn't afford to waste any more time. He rented a villa with a basement. The heating and electricity would eventually shut down. By then, the basement would be the warmest place. The structure of the house had to be reinforced with freeze-proof materials. All doors and windows needed to be replaced with bulletproof glass. He paid triple the price to book the best construction crew in town. Even so, he was still anxious. In the face of a natural disaster, humans were helpless. He had to rely on his own experience and wits to survive this disaster. Most of the supplies he ordered wouldn't arrive until next Monday. Before that, he paid extra to ensure the workers reinforced the villa with both quality and speed. They finished a day earlier than planned. He generously paid the remaining balance, and kindly reminded them that the temperature might drop and they should stay warm. Whether they believed him or not, he didn't care. When the apocalypse came, he could only look after himself. Over the weekend, he went back to the supermarket to buy power banks and charcoal. He had specifically asked the workers to install a fireplace chimney during the renovation, so he bought a lot of firewood and coal, just in case. In an apocalypse, the human heart was the most dangerous thing, so a surveillance system was a must. He also ordered different flavors of instant noodles, self-heating hot pots, all kinds of snacks, and plenty of drinking water. Any food that could be stored for a long time, he bought it all. If the house could fit more, he would have emptied the entire store. He also bought toilet paper and all kinds of daily necessities. After organizing all the supplies at home, he suddenly felt very lonely. He had been alone for many years, but the impending apocalypse made him feel panicked and uneasy. The temperature started to drop. He got busy again. On one hand, he was reinforcing the underground bunker. On the other hand, he was checking to see if he was missing any supplies. After some thought, he hired another crew to reinforce the basement walls, making sure he wouldn't get buried alive if an earthquake hit. He filled the entire basement with food alone. His villa was the largest in the area, but he still felt it wasn't enough. He gradually bought more non-perishable food, and even a lot of alcohol. If the temperature got too low, drinking could help keep the cold away. He also stocked up on a large amount of meat. Meat could be stored frozen for a long time. Finally, he went to the pharmacy and bought cold medicine, anti-inflammatories, and various medications for frostbite. On the night before the apocalypse, he sat on the sofa, deep in thought. He had only ever read about doomsdays in novels. He never thought something like this would actually happen to him. He walked to the window and looked up at the sky. There was no moon tonight, but the sky was red. His unease reached its peak at that moment. Then, snowflakes began to fall, signaling that a doomsday catastrophe was on its way. Quickly spent all his money, converted his house into a shelter, and stockpiled a massive amount of supplies. Through the villa's window, he saw snow beginning to fall. The temperature was dropping fast. The snowflakes went from the size of bottle caps to the size of hamburgers. It was the most ridiculous snowfall he had ever seen in his life. Soon, he might have no choice but to move down to the basement to survive. Feeling hungry, he went to the kitchen and made a pot of porridge. While gas and electricity were still working, he tried to avoid using his stockpiled supplies as much as possible. After eating, he looked out the window. The snow showed no sign of stopping. There was a farmer's market next to the neighborhood. A lot of people had started hoarding food, thinking this was just an ordinary snowstorm. Some kids were playing outside in the snow. He couldn't help but admire their innocence. He had exhausted himself stockpiling supplies over the past few days, so he decided to go get some proper rest in bed. When he woke up, electricity and the internet were still working normally. The news was full of reports about this sudden heavy snow. 2 weeks passed in the blink of an eye. For 14 straight days, the sky had been dark red. The sun never reappeared, as if it had never existed at all. The snow gradually stopped, but the temperature kept dropping. Fewer and fewer people were out on the streets. A lot had happened over those 2 weeks. He had stocked up on more fresh vegetables, but the inheritance his parents had left him was almost gone. As the temperature fell, prices kept climbing. The kids who had been having snowball fights earlier were nowhere to be seen. He learned that some high-latitude regions were already facing power shortages, and had temporarily lost contact with the outside world. Because the disaster had struck so suddenly, many people without heating had no choice but to go to shelters. Luckily, he lived in an upscale neighborhood. Most households had stored up plenty of food, and heating and electricity were still running, so there was no need to go to a shelter. Another week went by. He checked the indoor temperature, 19 degrees Celsius. He turned on the heater and wrapped himself tighter in his blankets. Although the heating system was still working, it wasn't as effective as before. A lot of people in the neighborhood had already left today, probably because their food had run out. The neighborhood group chat was unusually lively. Many people still thought this was just a snowstorm, nothing to make a big deal out of. Just stock up on some food and it would be fine. But one message caught his attention. A middle-aged woman said her child had a fever, and she was asking for fever medicine and food. He remembered the kids playing in the snow a while back. Was hers one of them? He felt a pang of sympathy, but having read plenty of apocalypse novels, he knew all too well what it meant. In the end of the world, compassion kills. So he didn't say anything in the group. Letting others know he had supplies would only bring endless danger. If people found out how much he had stored, they would definitely try to break in. With his frail build, he had no real means to defend himself, so he decided to ignore all pleas for help. Better not to invite trouble. Little did he know, this middle-aged woman would later almost get him killed. The extreme ice age had arrived. The man was shivering uncontrollably on the first floor of his villa, so he decided to move some of the supplies from the basement upstairs. Once those were used up, he would relocate to the safer, warmer basement. The temperature had already dropped to minus 70 degrees. The woman who had been asking for help in the neighborhood group chat still hadn't gone to a shelter. She kept posting requests for help every day, even tagging the man directly. He sensed trouble. She might have spotted him moving supplies the last time. He didn't reply, pretending he had already moved away. Half a month passed, and the temperature dropped another 20 degrees. Some people in the group chat had run out of supplies and were in despair. The man felt deeply grateful that he had listened to his cousin back then. Given how lazy he usually was, he probably would have frozen or starved to death by now. Some wealthy residents were offering luxury cars for rice, and designer watches for bread, but no one was willing to trade with them. After their food ran out, many chose to head to the shelters. Looking at his own supplies, the man felt a sense of security. He had an entire basement full of them. Then a message appeared in the group chat. The shelters were already overcrowded and no longer accepting anyone. Suddenly, a loud crash made him jump. It was the sound of breaking glass. Then came gunfire. Someone was looting supplies. It was madness. When people were pushed to the brink, there was no limit to what they would do. In the apocalypse, without the restraint of law, people's savagery was beyond imagination. Another message popped up in the group chat. It was from that pleading woman. She was actually urging other residents to go to the man's house and steal his food. He let out a cold laugh, lamenting how unpredictable human nature could be. He decided to leave the small amount of supplies on the ground floor for them. He had already installed cameras in the house. He turned off the air conditioner, stuffed the remote in his pocket, and retreated into the basement, locking the blast door behind him. He had seen this day coming. That door was the sturdiest in the entire villa. Even a hand grenade probably couldn't break it down. The temperature in the basement was low, but not the bone-chilling, lethal cold outside. Upstairs lay the evil of human nature. Down here, he was safer. The basement was spacious, with separate areas for storage and living. Perfectly livable. He opened the surveillance feed on his phone. The front door had been completely smashed in. More than a dozen people had swarmed inside, some with guns, some carrying axes. They were already arguing over how to split the few supplies he had left behind. Before long, they discovered the basement door. They couldn't get it open. In the end, they decided to camp out in his villa and keep looking for a way in. Over the following days, the man watched them through the cameras. They tried every method they could think of to break the door down, but failed every time. As time passed, the supplies upstairs dwindled. The group grew more and more volatile. Eventually, several of them died fighting over the last pack of instant noodles. Prolonged hunger twisted their expressions into something grotesque. And then, the dead ones became food. Watching through the monitor, the man felt sick to his stomach. Over the next few days, the temperature in the basement stayed stable. Still cold, but comfortable enough. A month later, one of the intruders somehow got hold of a grenade, and prepared to blow the door open. The man panicked. He wasn't sure if the door could withstand the blast. A deafening explosion shook the entire basement. When the tremor passed, he checked the monitor. The door only had a few scratches on it. He breathed a quiet sigh of relief. The door was solid, and the food stored in the basement would last him a long time. But if that door ever gave way, he would have nowhere left to run.